Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're tuning in from. This is Talk Talent, where we talk about all kinds of things related to talent. And I've got the perfect guest for you today. Vitale Buford and I were connected through a mutual friend, Jessica Shuttleworth, who I work with on an almost everyday basis. And this woman is extremely special. She lives in Lexington, Kentucky, but her story is extremely interesting, and we're gonna talk about that and how it affects us and how we believe that why we are so driven to perfection, right? When really it's okay to have faults. And so my guest has a lot of I love her name because she is so full of vitality that she just makes you smile and makes you want to engage. And she's going to tell her story today because it's an interesting path where she was addicted to the drug Adderall for over 10 years. And she's written a book called Addicted to Perfect. And you need to go out and buy it on Amazon. But enough of me gibbering on. Let me welcome my lovely guest, Vitale Buford. Yay!
Oh, thank you, Michael. I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
How are you? Did you like that opening catch?
It was awesome.
Of course. Well, anytime I can use a dad joke pun, I got to do it, right?
Do it, for sure.
Yeah. So welcome to the show. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day.
Of course.
So I think the best place for us to start is for you to kind of just lead us on that journey, kind of give us the high level journey, and then we'll kind of dive in, if that makes sense. So can I turn it over to you to kind of tell your story and go from there?
Yes, we will go with the flow. This will be organic. So I grew up in a household with workaholism and alcoholism. And so I quickly learned at a very young age that I got love and attention when I was perfect. And perfect for me meant extremely high achieving in school and very thin. And so this need for worthiness through perfectionism, love through perfectionism, connection through perfectionism followed me through college and young adulthood. And I was introduced to the drug Adderall when I was a junior at the University of Georgia. And for me, it was the perfect drug because I was taking 18 hours, working 2 part-time jobs, and it allowed me to get all of that done with ease and success. And so that started a 10-year addiction for me with Adderall. And it was a very silent, private addiction, right? I was able to perform extremely well in my career. No one knew that I was struggling. I looked perfect on the outside, right? I was leading the departments, marketing and business development departments of large law firms, working 14, 16-hour days, achieving, climbing the ladder, as you would say. And then at the end of 10 years, I was 31 years old, realized I couldn't live my life that way anymore. A series of events happened and I just realized something's got to change. I can't keep this up for the rest of my life. And so I got sober, I went to rehab, and I've been sober for nearly 7 years. And this journey that I've been on, I changed careers, became an HR director, then became a certified coach, and then started my own business. And really the thing for me was when I started writing my memoir in 2019, and when I finished the first draft, it just came to me that no one's talking about perfectionism. Yes, I had this Adderall addiction, but it was just a symptom of my perfectionism. My workaholism was a symptom of my perfectionism. My people pleasing was a symptom of my perfectionism, and a host of other things. And I had been a slave to perfectionism my entire life for more than 3 decades. And I was like, no one is talking about this. People kind of touch on perfectionism, but no one talks about how it's this main pillar. And so that's what I coach on. I coach strictly on perfectionism, how to overcome it, how it impacts individuals, how it impacts the workplace. And that's where I am today.
Well, and I was going to come up with the University of Georgia because we're both alumni of we bleed red and black, right? Look, I think I showed you this last time, but there you go. Go Dogs, sick 'em. We'll never win a national title, but it's okay. I've come to that fact because they're not perfect. We want them to be perfect. We want them to be like Alabama, but they're not. They never, and I promise you, they never will be. At least in my lifetime. I'm a little bit older than you, so you got a fighting chance. But that's not the point of what we're talking about. So today you lead these classes with, I assume, individuals, or they're more group classes?
It's organization.
Perfectionism?
So I lead departments and teams and organizations on how to overcome perfectionism.
How do you, when you're looking at people that, and I did a little teaser this morning in my LinkedIn post to get you on, you saw, right? That in an interview question, most people are asked, so, what are your weaknesses, or what's your weakness? Well, sometimes I can be, I try to be a perfectionist. That's bullshit. Come on. I mean, let's call it like we see it, right? It's an easy cop-out answer. We all have vulnerabilities. We need to admit what our vulnerabilities are. How do you get people to open up to realize what those vulnerabilities are when you're talking with them or coaching them?
So when I'm working with people, the way that I approach all training and all coaching is that we have to be able to lead ourselves before we lead others. And so when I do trainings, the first part is always on how you lead yourself and how you uncover your own patterns of perfectionism that are holding you back. And then we go into how you lead others and how perfectionism impacts your leadership ability and your ability to communicate and build relationships and resolve conflict. And so for me, it's about educating people. Like, these are the symptoms of perfectionism, because most people think of perfectionism as, the interview question, what's your biggest weakness? I'm a perfectionist, right? I used it. But people think about it as needing to have this perfectly organized house or perfectly clean desk. But when I'm talking about perfectionism, I'm talking about the deep roots of perfectionism, which are procrastination, people pleasing, comparison, avoiding conflict, indecision, feeling stuck, constant worry, overwhelm, anxiety, imposter syndrome. And those things are holding us back, not only in our professional life, but our personal life.
How do you recommend we get over imposter syndrome? Because, and I've written about this, or blogged or tweeted or LinkedIn about it. There's a great show on Netflix called Fake Famous, and it really is about the imposter syndrome, and that these people who think that they're influencers, whether you think you're an influencer or not, how do you get over this feeling that everything's great in my world? Look at me. I don't know if you've seen that movie, but if you haven't, you should totally watch it. Have you heard of this show?
I haven't seen it. I mean, I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
You should totally watch it. It's unbelievable. So how do you recommend people get over this imposter syndrome? The first step is obviously admitting, like, it's almost like addiction, right? We've got a problem, I would assume, right? That's step one.
Right. Right. So imposter syndrome is like when you feel like a fraud, when you're not speaking up at meetings, when you're in a room and you're like, how am I in this room of people? I shouldn't be here. Like, what's happening? I don't deserve to be in this room. And so really it's acknowledging that, like, wow, I feel like a fraud. Hey, Jessica. So yeah, it's about, it's understanding that, right? Like, I feel like an imposter, and it's accepting it. And then it's like giving yourself permission to succeed, to be successful. And then it's about knowing the thoughts that are holding you back, and then choosing different thoughts, because imposter syndrome is victim thinking. All perfectionism is victim thinking, all of it. Because when we are perfectionists, we're giving away our power to everyone else. Like, you make the decision for me. You know me better than me. Like, I'm going to outsource my intuition, my decisions, my self-worth to everyone outside of me, everyone in the room. And so it's about taking your power back. And when we're perfectionists, we're bystanders in our lives. And so really the journey is becoming the CEO and the leader of your life through imperfection.
It's easier said than done, though, isn't it?
It is, which is why I do training around it.
All right, I threw that softball up in the air for you, but there you go. No, it's true. Look, I'll admit, I don't. It's not imposter syndrome, but I get in the way of my own success. Thinking, okay, today I'm gonna, I'll have it all labeled out on my calendar. I'll do all this, and then stuff starts popping up. And then you look back at your day, and the stuff that's popping up, whether it's emails, LinkedIn, comments, wherever you're hanging out on social media, these, it goes back to, I don't know if you've ever read the book Driven to Distraction.
No,
It's about ADHD and how to cope with it, which is something that I have, more on the AD, hyperactive, when I was younger, but not as much anymore, right? But we get in the way of ourselves. And so what are some of the key, if you were coaching me, what are the top 3 things you'd tell me to say, you're blocking your own path to success? This is what you need to do. Can you give us a little taste?
Yeah. So I would say in terms of like how you own your day instead of your day owning you, I'm a big believer in consistency and discipline and really showing up for yourself, right? So the first thing is being really intentional, right? There's a quote that I posted and it was, are you prioritizing your schedule or are you scheduling your priorities? And so it's about really being intentional about your priorities. And so scheduling your priorities and then making it non-negotiable to stick to them, not in a perfectionist way, but in a way that when you show up for yourself, you build your self-confidence, because perfectionism is a confidence killer. Every time we procrastinate, we put something off, we don't show up for ourselves, we don't follow through on a promise that we make to ourselves, we nick away at our mindset, at our self-confidence, and our belief in ourselves. And so it's about being intentional about your day, knowing yourself and your time constraints, knowing what energy you need to bring to certain meetings, and having boundaries.
I like the boundaries. And I even had a post last night that was short and sweet that said, you can't be on all the time, right? Though, of course, our friend Jessica, in a private message, emails me. She goes, says the person posting this at 8:30 Eastern time. She's right. Yeah. I didn't get to it. I mean, I was on calls literally all day, Jessica, all day. And I couldn't get to it until that point. But what I realized was, as I was typing it, I was drained. I mean, I couldn't, my wife was like, well, what do you want to watch? I'm like, something where I don't have to think. Something that, and literally was almost falling asleep as I was saying that.
Right.
What's the best way to set boundaries? I mean, we have our calendars, but both you and I know that it's hard to for me, it's hard to live by my calendar sometimes because life gets in the way. Dogs got to go outside. You don't want them going in the house. The only son left in my house, or my last child in the house, needs breakfast or needs dinner. I've got to get outside to take a walk or do something. But how do you set those boundaries? Is it just through straight up calendaring? What are some other things I can be doing?
Well, I think it's prioritizing. So it's first knowing, it's like I look at my week and I'm like, what times, how do I need to protect my energy this week? And so, for example, I'm leading a very large training at the end of this week, and the morning before it is blocked off. There is nothing allowed to be scheduled that morning because I know what it takes for me to lead a training of that caliber to that many people. for that long of a time. And so I'm not messing around with it. I also know that I wouldn't schedule one-on-one sessions back to back because it drains my energy. Like, it's about really knowing yourself. When am I most productive? Do I need to do all these calls back to back in the morning, in the afternoon? And then, like, for me, Friday afternoon, first of all, Fridays are days where I don't schedule anything client-wise. They're expansive days where I brainstorm, I get things done. And then Friday afternoons, I take off, and I call it, instead of like a rest day, I call it a receiving day. Because as perfectionists, we think we have to punish our way to success, right? Productivity is our go-to. And so downtime can be really difficult for us. And so if you can reframe it, instead of taking a rest day or a rest, 2-hour break, call it receiving, because we can't receive our blessings and our opportunities if we are always on the go.
Wow.
Right? How are our blessings and our opportunities going to catch us if we are always on the go?
Yeah, and as since we're both entrepreneurs, I mean, right? You feel like, oh, if I'm not working on a Friday afternoon, which nobody's working on a Friday afternoon, really, it's kind of their downtime. For the people that have full-time jobs, they may be working, but you feel like if you're not working, you're not going to bring money into the fray, right? And which is not true, because if you plan your week better and you prioritize and you stick to those priorities and you stick to your calendar, maybe allowing even some downtime during the middle of the week.
Totally.
Shutting off at 3:00 in the afternoon is not a bad thing, folks. Right?
Right. And so it's being honest, right? I'm like, did I show up for myself this week? Did I follow through on the commitments I made to myself and my clients this week? Am I in integrity with myself?
Yeah.
And so if I'm checking those boxes, and again, not in a way where I beat myself up or I'm more perfectionist or I'm more critical, but like, did I really show up for me? Do I feel good about how I showed up authentically and followed through and whatever it is? And then it's like, okay, it's time to receive. I need to slow down, right? Rest really helps us show up better.
Absolutely. So I'll ask the folks that are watching out there, how do you protect your time? And then also I want you to be vulnerable. What are some of your what are some of your imperfections? I mean, I've admittedly come out with 2 or 3 just in the last 17 minutes we've been on. So, but put in the comments, let us know. If you have questions for Vitale, please ask them, and I'll make sure to read them here. We're on for another 18 minutes, so would love to hear from you. So let's go back in time to that dark period, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Can we go back? Is that good? You're sitting there. How many were you popping a day? How many Adderalls were you popping a day on average?
I, at the height of my addiction, was taking 360 milligrams a day.
So was that 20 milligram tablets?
30
milligram tablets. Holy cow. So for those of you who don't know, Adderall is similar to Vyvanse, Ritalin.
Speed.
Yeah, it's basically speed. Dexatrin, if you remember. Do you remember Dexatrin?
No, but I know of it, yeah.
Dexatrin is that dietary supplement pill. All it is speed that you pop and you wouldn't be hungry. Now, do I eat more when I don't take my Vyvanse that I take? Yeah, I'll eat more, but when I'm on it, yeah, but I'm also different. I'm more focused, but I'm jittery. I just sometimes I can't write with a pen when I'm on it. I have a hard time writing. And so it's a lot. 360 milligrams, for those of you who don't know, 300 milligrams of something is a lot, right? What was that trigger moment where you went, oh shit, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Can you take us back to that point in time?
Yeah, it was a really powerful moment. So this coach that I worked with, his name's Justin Patton, and he's an incredible coach. I had hired him to speak to the attorneys at the law firm I was working at a business development forum. And I'd hired him for several things. And so we knew each other. We were friends. And he had visited. This was in 2014, May of 2014. And he had seen me interact with my team. And we're in the car together and we're driving from meetings to meetings. And he looks at me and he says, Vitale, are you critical of your team? And, I have zero self-awareness at this point, right? I'm 31 years old, 30 years old. I have zero self-awareness. I feel like it's a personal attack on me, right? Because as perfectionists, we do not take personal feedback or criticism well, right? We take it very personally. And so he looks at me and he's like, I think you're critical of your team. And I was like, who do you think you are? What I'm thinking in my head. And so he looks at me and he's like, and he could tell I was upset and not receiving the information very well. And he was like, no, I think you're critical of your team because you're critical of yourself. And then he told me the phrase that changed my life. He said, I see in you what I refuse to see in me. I see in you what I refuse to see in me. And so that quote, what happened was the next week, I had no idea what he was saying. Like he was hitting me with all these truth bombs. I was like, what is happening? He had no idea that I was in active addiction either. And so the next week, my mom comes to visit me and she relapses at my house. And I start pointing the finger at her, like, why can't you get sober? Why can't you change? You never make any attempts. And then I took this huge pause and remembered that phrase that Justin told me, I see in you what I refuse to see in me. And at that exact moment, I realized I'm asking my mom to get sober, but I haven't been willing to get sober, right? I see in my mother what I'm refusing to see in myself. And it was literally that moment where I was like, okay, it's time for me to get sober. And I admitted to her that I had a problem. I went to rehab a week later. It was dominoes.
Yeah, right. It's the pot calling the kettle black, really.
Yeah.
Theory. And first off, congratulations. And I think that I had some addiction problems to weed and stuff like that, but it takes time for someone to realize if they're looking in the mirror, especially a parent, right? It'll definitely have that, oh crap moment. And so how long did it take you to recover?
Well, I was in rehab I would say we're all recovering every day.
Well, yeah, it's still a challenge.
I was in rehab for 2 weeks and then outpatient, right? So I've been sober for almost 7 years this June. And, it's just doing the work daily, but it's not a problem for me anymore. It's not something I would even consider.
What do you do to celebrate that anniversary? When you're do you celebrate every year? I hope you do.
I do, but it's just not a part of me. It's a part of who I am, but it's not, I don't identify with that anymore. It's a part of my story. But it's not it's not a huge thing for me anymore. I'm grateful and I reflect on where I was during that time of year and how scared I was and how ashamed I was and how afraid I was. And I'm I had this talk with my younger self, it's going to be okay. And you have no idea how beautiful all of the things that you're going through, how you're going to be able to impact other people's lives.
And so was it at that moment that you decided to I know the book recently came out, but
yeah.
Was it at that point that you said, all right, this is my life's mission? Or how did you get to where you are today, to where you're training people to say it's okay not to be perfect?
Yeah. Well, it was, so when I got sober, I was like, I want to write a book. No one's talking about Adderall. No one's talking about perfectionism. I want to tell my story. And then I changed careers and I became an HR director and I started coaching the executive team and I became a certified coach. And then I was like, this is what I'm meant to do. I'm meant to coach. But it wasn't until I really wrote the memoir in 2019 that I was like, this is my life's work. This is it. I am the imperfectionist And my life's work is because 97% of people struggle with some form of perfectionism and they don't even know it. Some people are strict perfectionists, some people are mild, 97%. And so it's a lot.
So how do you, I mean, I've come clean today, but
Yeah.
like how do some of our listeners, how do they go, like, how do they take this inventory of themselves to say, shit, I'm not perfect. And what do I, so how do they figure that out? But before they, yes, they can come to you and I want them to come to you, but how do they figure that out? Like, how do they know where they think they have this imposter syndrome or their perfection syndrome?
Yeah. So what I do is, so first of all, it's not, I'm not perfect. It's, I don't want to chase perfection anymore. Like chasing perfectionism is not serving me. In fact, it's stealing my joy. It's stealing my present. It's stealing my life away. And so I'd encourage them, I've got a lot of content on my page. Like I would be really looking at the symptoms and saying, which ones do I struggle with? And I have a quiz on my website too that they can take that gives them tools.
I love that quiz.
And so taking the quiz will give them an idea of where they stand on the spectrum of perfectionism. I've had more than 1,000 people take it. It's super easy. So that, and then it's really like the first step when I'm working with any client, I start with curious observation because I believe curiosity is the cure-all. When we get curious about our thoughts, instead of being our thoughts, we're able to start changing them, right? Because as perfectionists, we get out of our hearts and into our heads and we become our thoughts. I'm a bad person. I can't believe I did that. There was I made a typo in an email and we ruminate on it for days. We stay in our heads. And so we need to get out of our heads and start getting curious. Why am I being so hard on myself? And so I have clients for an entire week start taking an inventory of every limiting thought they have about themselves. And it could be pages. But writing down everything, then realizing, okay, this is way more pervasive than I realized. And then looking at the thought patterns, like are certain thoughts about work? Are they about parenting? Are they about relationships? Are they about your self-image? And then you can start, healing it.
Absolutely. And if you want to take that quiz, put that up there. Yeah. I mean, and I took it. And of course, it made me really think, but I love that. I love your thoughts around taking inventory of all that. I never thought to do that.
Yes.
And I could probably fill this up pretty quick, the whole thing. But that, when you write down a lot of that stuff, where do you start? Like, because you could go, okay, do you literally go 1, 2, 3, 4, check, 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 as you're starting to work through it? What's that? What's the way to tackle?
So it's about like when I'm working with people, it's, the 3 steps are awareness, mindset, and then action. So you got to become aware, right? Because we can't change. So really when you're taking that inventory, you look at the list and it's really the 1 or 2 things that really stick out to you. And knowing like I'm a perfectionist, my go-to is I want to solve all of these things right now. And I want to be perfect with all of it. And knowing that this takes time, it's a journey. And so it's because if we try and tackle all of it, it's a setup for failure. And so it's taking one thing and starting there. And then starting with the next thing. Like, so for example, if you are someone that struggles with external validation, like you are constantly, and I'm talking about, there is a difference between advice and input. You are constantly seeking advice. You're calling people, asking other people, what should I do about this? And you just don't trust yourself. One of the ways that you can heal that is go on a 2-week advice detox. And so for 2 weeks, you are not allowed to ask for advice from anyone. not for dinner, not for that big project, not for that decision. And it's about like just experiencing those 2 weeks and realizing how many times you would have sought advice.
Okay. I'm totally down for that.
It is profound. I did it 4 years ago. I created it myself. I was like, I am out of control with my people pleasing and my advice seeking. Like it is intense. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to detox and I'm not asking anyone. And it was painful to realize like, oh my goodness. But then it profoundly changed me. I stopped seeking advice. I started trusting myself, trusting my decisions.
I think advice is a crutch. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
And and I don't know if you did, I know I did this, for the last, 3 years. So you and I have been in business, with our own direction for the last, we're on the same track, right? Of about 3 years now, coming up here, April on May. And I find it maddening when I ask for advice that I get 4,000. I'm not kidding you. I started pretty written down every piece of advice that I have ever gotten from somebody.
Yeah.
And there's one person who I love and she's amazing, but every time I talk to her and I would start going down a path, not really seeking advice, I'd get the advice and I could feel my heart rate just going hard because I was wigging out because it's like, okay, time, slow down. I think that's the best piece of advice you could tell anybody. Quit taking advice, except for the advice she just gave.
And there's healthy input. Like if you're wanting your team to collaborate on something, that's input, that's collaboration, but we know where the line is. It's just how willing are we to be honest with ourselves? The thing is that the journey of letting go of perfectionism is becoming the expert of yourself. We are all the experts of ourselves. We just haven't been giving ourselves permission. We've been letting everyone else be the expert of me. And that's why we seek advice. Like, you know me better than me. What should I do? No, you know you better than anyone else. Own it, live it. And that's when your life unfolds. When you become the expert of you. And you're like, I know me, I trust me, I'm going to make this decision. If I make a mistake, it's I'm going to learn. If it's a failure is just a sign of success and that I'm taking action. Like the less advice we take and the more we just say, this is really scary, but I'm not going to ask anyone about this decision because I am building my intuition muscle.
You could be classified as a genius. Because you have so much common sense. Because you have it's nothing that isn't that what it's all about? Go with your gut. Go with what you believe is the right direction for for you. Create your own personal journey and stay on that journey because a lot of times we want, we equate perfectionism to bringing money in, which is, to me, perfect does not equal the amount of money I make or who I am. But that's what we think as entrepreneurs, but even CEOs and executive leaders, and this will be my last question here, that they, especially in a startup situation, small business situation, they get ready to go to hyper growth and they're getting ready to go gangbusters, etc. How do you get them out of that mindset? Because they feel like if they're not perfect in their leadership style or in the advice or the counsel that they're giving to their employees, because you said you were in HR. How would you advise those executives to just say, you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days, and it's okay to have bad days. But how do you continue to lead a team knowing that there are vulnerabilities out there?
Well, I think it's about like trusting that everyone's on the path and that they're like learning what they're supposed to be learning at any given time. But for me, the phrase that guides me as a recovering perfectionist is I cannot miss out on what's meant for me. I cannot miss out on what's meant for me. And that's with experiences, opportunities, relationships. And as perfectionists, we try to control everything. Well, I need to control the outcome of this conflict. I need to control the outcome of this situation and whether or not this employee leaves and if this client stays or goes. And it's like, chill out, because what's meant for you can't miss you.
I wish I was sitting here writing down all these quotes. So you're going to have to go back in the comments after this is over and write down all that stuff. Because I'm a sponge. I'm trying to take it all in, but it's just it's crazy. I mean, it's good crazy.
Because as perfectionists, we get so attached to these certain outcomes. And when we get so attached to those outcomes, we block out every other opportunity and new ideas. Like perfectionism is a creativity killer. It is an expansiveness killer. And as CEOs and leaders, that's our zone of genius, right? Is creativity and solutions and expansiveness and brainstorming. And when we're in perfection mode, ain't none of that happening.
That's right.
None of it. And so it's, for me, like, I show up authentically, I do the work, and whether or not client hires me, it's because that person, they're either meant for me or they aren't.
What are, I don't know if you have children or not. If
I do.
You have a family. So is that hard as a mom? Because you want to be, right, all moms say, all dads say, I want to be the best dad ever. I want to be the best mom ever. And then, we trip over ourselves and we say something stupid, or we get angry for no reason, or we just, we have fallible moments, or however you want to say that, right? So how do we as parents not put ourselves in that, the best dad ever, all these T-shirts or little trophies I used to give my parents the little trophies, best mom ever, best dad ever, right? But it's a lot different in today's world with your children having phones or iPads. Maybe they don't, but so as a parent, how do you raise your child not to believe that imperfectionism is okay?
We let them be themselves.
Yeah.
When they cry, we let them cry. When they have, because whenever we are trying to control our children, it's because of our own insecurities. Again, my leading thing with perfectionism is you heal yourself, you heal your children. Because when we are healed, our insecurities and all of our limiting beliefs aren't spilling over onto them. If I'm short with my son, it is always because of something going on with me. Always, 100%. I don't care what he does. It is always something happening with me. And so when I can heal the things happening with me, I can handle his stuff with more calmness. I can let him have his own experiences instead of controlling how he reacts or how he responds or what he does, because it's not about me. He is not a reflection of me.
No. And I think that's really a good way to look at it. And I think that's where dads, fathers, we have trouble. Because we want to be this perfect dad, and we screw up all the time. And sorry.
Yeah.
So, could I have been a better father along the way? Yeah, I could have. Have I tried to fix my imperfections? No, I probably could have done a lot better job. No, my kids still love me for who I am. I'm that kooky, stupid dad. I have fun. I like to joke around with them. I always get the look of act half your age from my significant other, but I try to be who I am. But I wish I had had someone like you telling me that 25 years ago. Sorry.
It's okay, but here's something that you need to be saying to yourself. Like, Michael, you need to say, I give myself room to be human. Give yourself room to be human. Like, I grew up in an alcoholic home, and I love my mother. And we've had our ups and downs, but I am who I am because of that experience. And now I get to impact people's lives. And I'm grateful. I wouldn't change anything that I've been through. And I'm not giving people permission to, it's not a permission slip to just do whatever. But
Right.
The point is that, it's about really healing yourself, because when you heal yourself, everyone around you indirectly heals.
Yeah, no doubt.
And it's the biggest gift you can give to anyone around you, your team, your family, yourself, is to, heal yourself and get out of your own way.
Well, congratulations. You're the first person to make me cry on my own show. I appreciate that. But, it's about being vulnerable and admitting that you can be better without having to be perfect.
Right.
So this was Jessica Chapman that said it's like the FOMO effect. It is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I can't miss out what's meant for me. So Jessica, thank you. I don't know why. Sometimes StreamYard doesn't show the person's name, even though I can see the name on my phone. So it's kind of weird. So thank you, Jessica, for that. Also, thank you to Vineet. Todd McCann, I don't know. Do you know Todd?
Mm-mm.
No, he was saying it's going to block our faces. He says, I'm a Jungian giver. I don't care if I would call it an imperfection. I've been told that I care for others far too deeply. Yeah, and I mean, I think that's a lot there. He had to drop,
Yeah.
but it's I think and thanks, Jesse, appreciate that. And people call me a giver as well, and I love to give back by having folks like great guests like yourself on the show. But even when someone asks, hey, can you show me something, or they need help with their job search, even though I've kind of gotten out of that job search mode, I still tend to give because I don't expect anything in return. That's okay, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It's about, like, when we're giving too much, are we losing our sense of identity? Are we helping that person because by helping that person, we feel better about ourselves? Like, I need you to be happy for me to be happy. That's like, it's more codependency related. Now, you're talking about being of service.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Vitale, I really, really appreciate.
Thank you for having me.
Your guidance, your wisdom today. Thank you for making me cry. Thank you for making me admit literally everything I had to, all my imperfections, and but you've inspired me, and I know you've inspired my viewers. I know you have, and you are a great human being.
Thank you.
And you've helped, and because Jessica's, through our mutual friend Jessica, you have helped her, right? I'm sure you have helped hundreds, thousands. If you need to get in touch with Vitale, first of all, you can connect with her on LinkedIn or go to vitalebuford.com, right? You also need to buy her book, Addicted to Perfect. And I will admit, and I told her this up front, that I had booked her for the show, but I never got around to ordering the book. but I am going to order it and I am going to read it. And and I think, what we've seen here today and what we've heard here today is that it's okay to mess up along the journey. That's part of the journey. And you've been a wonderful guest, and I just can't thank you enough for bringing life into the show today. I mean, you've made my day, honestly.
That's my mission. Thank you for letting me.
Sure. So just hang on a bit. We'll go ahead and close the broadcast here. Everybody, thanks for joining us. Please reach out to Vitale. She's amazing, obviously. I don't think I can sing her praises even more. But thanks today for joining us and spending some extra time with us. Be safe, wear a mask, go get vaccinated if you're eligible. Just enjoy your day. And if you need to take the day off, we're giving you some permission. Just do it. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next Tuesday with another great broadcast. Let's see, we got some more comments here. This was from Jessica, and then Salani Sakdev. We need to talk, my friend. You need to reach out to me. She knows why. But thank you for tuning in, and I hope everybody has a great day. And for those in Texas, hope you got water back, hope you got electricity, hope you can drink the water, because it was a really tough week. Go enjoy the 78 degrees that we're going to get today here in Dallas. I don't know about Houston or Austin or San Antonio, but get outside, take a walk, and pause. So thanks for joining us. I always like to say, Vitale, give him the Queen's wave goodbye. Oh. As we have. We got to see your hand. You got to show your hand. There you go.